This week's episode is kinda short and ends abruptly. We recorded this segment of the show the same week Anthony was thrown out of the Comedy Cellar, but thought it would be too much for one episode. We will be back with a full episode next time.
So we start this episode on July 9th, 2 days into the annual running of the bulls.
And 5 days before your
Birthday!
Your 21st?
Ooh.
Second birthday?
2008. Yeah, it would have been 21st, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, how drunk did you get?
Oh, so drunk. O and A hate their tradition and cheer on when runners get injured or worse. They mention the animal cruelty aspect of it, but make sure to elaborate they aren't really for animal rights because that would be gay or something. Opie mentions that he doesn't personally wear fur, but brings up that Anthony used to wear a fur coat to school as a kid. And Anthony is quick to remind us that he cried when his mom bought it for him because he knew the other kids at school would make fun of him for it, and he was right. This gets the boys on a conversation about other kids in their classes that would get made fun of. And Opie mentions a boy from his class that everyone suspected was gay. They riff for a little bit before Anthony makes an interesting admission.
You were great in the mile, but you weren't fooling anyone.
Was he in drama class? Did he do a lot of plays?
Was he in drama? That's a really good question. I don't remember anymore.
I always wanted to be in the plays.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the courage to go in and audition, do that. But then when the play was all like put together, and it was like the night they did it.
Yeah,
I always felt like I wanted to be one of the in crowd that was like hanging out and getting the adulation,
right?
And then hanging out like afterwards in the back hallway by the stage, congratulating each other with their bad makeup on and everything.
Sure.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to. I was a nobody.
What I really wanted to highlight, because there's a few things.
Is it the fact that he was like, was he in drama? And then quickly pivots to, I wish I had been in drama.
Yeah, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to point out, did you pick up on Opie during that?
See, I still can't figure out whose voice is whose a lot of time.
I'll replay it a little bit because I want you to take note of Opie reacting to Anthony talking about it.
I always wanted to be in the plays.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the courage to go in and audition, do that. But then when the play was all like put together, and it was like the night they did it.
Yeah.
I always felt like I wanted to be one of the in crowd that was like hanging out and getting the adulation.
Right.
And then hanging out like afterwards in the back hallway by the stage, congratulating each other with their bad makeup on and everything.
Sure.
This is such a sincere moment for Anthony to be admitting all this, and Opie is just sitting there like, yeah,
sure,
yeah.
You hear him like doing things.
Yeah, like boop, boop,
he's
boop, boop,
not
boop.
even listening.
He's playing with his Nintendo.
He's playing his Candy Crush. That wouldn't come for a few years, but yeah, I was so annoyed at that. Like, first of all, you're right. This is a very sincere thing.
Yeah, you can tell from the tone. You so rarely hear this tone of voice from Anthony.
Exactly.
Where it's like, because it like I said, it went from, hey, was he in drama? Yeah. I thought it'd be cool to be in drama,
And it wasn't a passing joke like that.
Yeah.
He was super detailed about it.
So detailed. Like, you could tell he had these, and it's so relatable, too, because the only times, like I went to an art school, and there were these divisions of people. Like,
right.
in normal high schools and middle schools, you had the jocks, and you had the cheerleaders, and you had, like, the nerds and the stoners. You had all those, like, teen movie stereotypes. Yeah. My middle school situation was, like, literally, like, High School Musical, singing in the fucking cafeteria, plays every fucking month. You were either a dancer, you were a visual artist, you were a theater kid, you were a choir kid, or you were like some little amalgamation of them all, or you in like all the AP classes.
Oh yeah.
And which was just like student government people.
Mm.
And I was an art kid, and there were a few times I tried to dabble in theater and stuff, and a majority of my besties were in theater. Yeah, that feeling of going to their shows and being like, oh, look at them go, they're gonna go, oh, look at them, oh, yeah, and like they're such good friends with all the people. Our principal was he had been on Broadway before.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And a majority of the teachers in the theater department and the drama department had also gotten like awards and been on big shows and stuff like that. The theater kids were sort of the jocks of the school.
That's so funny to think.
Yeah, and they were like, everyone knew them, they were super popular, they were always doing bits, and I had shown you a few videos of like the super popular ones.
Oh yeah,
so cringy, but also like they were the cocky ones that could do whatever they wanted to.
I think it's interesting for their dynamic too, that Anthony went ahead, and before this I didn't leave any of it in, but he was talking about his fur coat and how he was made fun of it all the time, and I think he might have got beat up because of it, or maybe they were just busting his balls over it. And it's like, he can do that, but when he's telling this story, it's a weird feeling, because I don't wish that Opie was making fun of him for this story, but it feels very weird in the context of the show that he wasn't made fun of this. You know what I mean?
Made fun of for the drama story?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they don't even acknowledge it.
No. It's so frustrating that it's just said and it's just done.
Yeah.
Opie barely even listens to him telling the story. It's like, you could have had a discussion about this, but you didn't.
Think about how he sits normally.
Mm.
And how, like, when he's really got a point, he's like, he spreads his arms and his chest out, and he's like, you know what? And then pivoting his head around and stuff.
Yeah.
When he's talking here, you can tell that he's making himself smaller.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe he's, like, fiddling with, like, a fucking straw wrapper or something.
He's very close to the mic, too.
He's just like, yeah, he's not looking at anybody, he's not making eye contact, he's just like, yeah, and you would just like, he's like in his own little world, just like, yeah, I thought it'd be cool to be like one of those kids and doing all that gay shit that they would do and stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like that's part of why no one's, it's like, just psychologically, if someone starts talking like that, you sort of don't want to look at them that much.
Yeah.
Especially if they're a friend of yours.
Mm-hmm.
But if they were somebody who really wanted to rip them a new one, like as a predator and prey kind of thing, then yeah, they would have hopped on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does feel very, the culture that they've created, it feels so weird that they didn't even acknowledge it.
Yeah, Opie's not one to pounce onto Anthony.
Yeah.
Because he pounces on vulnerable people who come in the studio, people he sees, he could punch down. Back then, he seemed to be all about that.
And Jim wasn't here?
I don't think... He might have came in late, or he wasn't on this episode.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like he was there. It feels like he would have interjected in there and been like... Because I feel like... Didn't he do drama?
He would have either related...
Yeah.
Or he would have joked about it, but in a kind of jokey, friend, ball-busting kind of way.
Right, exactly.
He does actually show up later. He must have been late.
Yeah.
He must have been late for the show.
Because I can think of plenty of jokes you can make about it.
Oh, for sure.
Like, would you want to be like Oliver and Oliver Company and be like, get more soup, please? And
yeah.
Well, you want to be little Timmy and fucking.
They actually, in about the time I'm listening to now, a friend of Anthony's outside of the show, who's actually more of a friend of somebody else's, but he's just in the friend circle of Anthony, so tangentially his friend also.
Right.
Who they make fun of for the way they sing, consider yourself. Anthony and Jim, I don't want to say it's echolalia, but there will be some times where they'll just be talking about stuff and you'll just hear one of them go, coin. Like they're just obsessed with saying it.
It could, I feel like neurotypical people, if they even are neurotypical, they get echolalia too.
I think there's almost a level of neurodivergence that is almost required for comedians, it seems. Just the way they seem to think about different things.
There's something to be talked about there.
It seems like an extra ability that comes from this way of thinking that.
Exactly.
Not the way that, because if everyone thought that way, everyone would be a fucking comedian.
Think about how a lot of people on the spectrum are so often observing other people.
Exactly, yeah.
And observing social rules and learning social rules. And then they just sit there and they're just like, that's a rule?
you're paying so much attention that you're able to make observational comedy about things that people don't typically talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh my god, I never thought about that.
Yeah, exactly.
They are. So yeah, there might be something there.
I definitely think that there's something there, especially like the class clown to comedian pipeline, if you will.
Oh, for sure.
Like, something they excel in school could be making people laugh, and their grades aren't that good, and a lot of comedians didn't do amazing in school.
And comedy often falls back on kind of a deflection tactic for like either like so I don't get made fun of or get bullied, and it's like if you're getting bullied or being made fun of, there's probably maybe a neurodivergent reason that people are picking up on and picking on you for that you need to
or lean into.
Exactly, yeah.
Like if you listen to the way that certain comedians, like their cadence, it's not quote unquote normal. And I'm not saying that necessarily everyone who's on the spectrum has some different cadence, but like some people do.
Yeah.
And that's something people pick up on, and like there are a lot of people on the spectrum who, as they're growing up, they realize, oh yeah, people just laugh at, I just say funny, I'm just really funny apparently.
Right, yeah.
Like growing up, people would say that to me a lot. They would be like, they would either say I'm very precocious or I'm like extremely witty. And I'm like, what? But what are you talking? Like, and it's almost every time it's something that I didn't intend to be funny.
Funny like a clown? Like I amuse you.
Funny like a clown?
I immediately get defensive.
Funny like a big bean? And just like and I think it comes from me putting things together that other people wouldn't have, and it surprises them. Yeah. And it's not necessarily like A plus B equals C comedy joke. It's like, you subverted my expectations by putting those two things together, and that's funny. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people on the spectrum might relate to that, but also like that darkness of like, people are just laughing at me. I'm being myself and people are laughing at me.
Speaking of neurodivergence and bullying, someone calls up and talks about a classmate that appears to have had mental issues. And this whole thing is fucked up. Both the story itself and how O&A react to it. This
should be good.
This is weird.
I'm going to call out a girl in first grade. Her name was Tammy. This is actually kind of calling out a teacher, too, because Tammy was one of these girls. This is pre-Ritalin days when all we were back then is just hyper brats. And no one could stand this girl. She was always acting up. And teacher used to always say the same thing our parents said to us was, we wanted attention. Tammy always wants attention. Teacher had enough one day, snaps, grabs this girl, brings her out to the hallway into these recessed glass showcases. They used to put like nativity scenes and things like that in there.
Trophies, things like that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Unlocks the showcase, puts Tammy inside, locks her in, marches out every first grade classroom and says to each kid one at a time, go give Tammy all the attention she wants. And we all got to stand there and just laugh our butts off. And so, of course, Tammy relieved herself on a hay bale beside a pumpkin, and it was just phenomenal.
God bless that teacher for doing that, but you do that these days.
You're in jail.
Are you fired or so fired on this one?
So fired.
So fired. Right?
And probably in jail.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And for good reason, because I'll be honest with you, that girl was never the same after that. It's like she suffered some kind of brain damage. It fixed her.
Yeah.
It fixed her. No medication, just good old-fashioned butt kicking. So
you literally... And the kids who were paraded out were probably traumatized to some degree too, but obviously this target child was fucking traumatized.
This caller takes on he goes in so many different directions. He says the teacher probably would have went to jail for good reason because the kid was never the same, then goes on to say
it fixed her.
That it fixed her, and that, you didn't need medication back then. It's like, oh yeah, because that's what fixed looks like. Someone who's just traumatized and just horrified by an event for the rest of their life. Great. Yeah, the God bless that teacher from Opie. The laughing in the background.
Like, it's just a people thinking that corporal punishment or public humiliation, which very similar in terms of traumatizing the brain. Like, oh yeah, that it works. Right. It works for people. Mm-hmm. It's like, does it? Works how?
Yeah.
If your only goal is to suppress the behavior, then yeah, sure. But if you don't keep in mind the fact that it's traumatizing this person and is going to have health repercussions later in life, mental health repercussions later in life, and just like I mean, just think of like something in school that maybe traumatized you in some what you consider small way, but you still remember and you still viscerally feel that, like, oh, I learned never to do like XYZ again because someone yelled at me or because someone like made it super apparent in class. One time I was in like high school, I was like 9th grade or something. It was like first period. And I was really tired. And a teacher that I really liked, like one of my top, like first or second favorite teachers, he just goes, I'm like staring into space because I'm like, my, you know, mental health is shit and home life is shit. And I'm apparently like sitting there with like my mouth open, just sort of like slack jaw, I guess. And he just like stops what he's doing. And he just goes, you better close your mouth, like flies are going to come in or flies are going to get in there. It's just like, like, did you...
Yeah, why'd you have to say that?
Like, if it's something worth pointing out, then maybe say something private to me.
Yeah.
Maybe be like, you okay? You're not really like all here today, you know, everything.
Yeah, why would
okay?
you say that in front of everybody when nobody probably even noticed what you were doing in the first place?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's really shitty.
And I already had like such a really good grade in that class, so it's like...
Yeah, what the fuck's the point?
What the fuck is the point?
Ugh.
Or like when I would fall asleep in math class and I had a very specific haircut. There are so many reasons that like I didn't do well in school that teachers should have been like, something's going on.
Yeah.
Maybe we should reach out and help this person. If I was falling asleep, I had a very specific like emo haircut that covered my eyes and I like leaned in a very specific way and like held a pencil so it looked like I was still doing whatever.
Yeah.
And one time they caught wise and I can't remember if they came and like smacked my desk, or if from the front of the class they were like, they said my name and said, wake up.
Ugh.
And it's just like, either way, you're making a big scene about a student.
Yeah, stop. Why?
Like, is it necessary?
Yeah.
If I'm not being disruptive.
Exactly, yeah.
And in this case, it's like, this person, okay, maybe they're being disruptive. And...
Yeah.
do you want to try to facilitate a situation that helps them through the situation? No. You just want to, like, utilize your fucking power?
Yeah.
Over, how old were they, like, elementary school?
In this story, I think this is first grade. Can you imagine? I had what would be considered like hyperactive children when I was in first grade. I remember them doing shit like that.
It's first grade.
How much? Yeah, you're gonna seriously blame a first grader for that?
What do you fucking expect? Like,
you're a fucking monster if you do that.
Literally. On one hand, teachers deserve more, but on the other hand, teachers do abuse their power.
Yeah.
Because teachers do have power.
Yeah.
Like, and this is such a fucking example of that.
I'd mentioned this before on a previous episode, but it's this episode where they learn poop was censored earlier in the show. Just the word itself.
It's a dirty word.
Huh?
It's a dirty word.
Like most words, context matters. Poop by itself is fine. But describing an action is usually not going to make air. They read names of different children's books with the word poop in the title to see which ones make it through and which ones don't. Producer Stunt Brain mentions he has an upcoming meeting with management and that he can bring this up with them then. Opie suggests he ghost management altogether and not meet with them out of principle. Being shocking on air to gain flabbergasted listeners is a decent strategy, but doesn't usually lead to longevity, and I could assume this strategy with management doesn't either.
Yeah.
Like, Opie can just say, we just say fuck it. We don't want to deal with it. It's like, if you're doing well in ratings, they're willing to overlook a certain amount of it.
Yeah.
But, like, at the end of the day, you still work for these people.
Right, exactly. It's a part of the business.
They're only going to put up with so much. The SiriusXM merger is fast approaching, and the first big news is the departure of Eric Logan, who was executive vice president since August of 2004 and has been the biggest supporter and cheerleader of the show behind the scenes. He's leaving for Harpo Productions, moving to the Oprah Winfrey Network in 2011, where he was president from 2016 to 2018, becoming the CFO of World Surf League in 2019.
Okay.
It's an odd journey. This has been a huge source of stress for the boys, or at least Opie. Anthony hasn't let on that he cares one way or another, despite having spent more time with Eric hanging out off-air. Opie openly admits that Eric leaving really upset him, which makes sense. Without a vocal supporter from high up, the future of the show is up in the air. Yeah, this is a guy who's been calling in on and off for years. Yeah, executive vice president of the company.
Yeah.
Being buds with these guys, like, that gives you a good bit of security that, like, we could probably get away with whatever we want. And now, with a merger coming up, and not knowing you're even going to be on Sirius.
Yeah.
One of the biggest guys pulling for you not being there. Yeah, Anthony's his usual, whatever.
Right.
Opie has numerous times been, like, sounding really bummed that he's not going to be there. It's like, yeah, this could be bad. On July 10th, hot mic audio of Jesse Jackson shit-talking Obama on Fox News is released. We talked briefly about the boys' reaction to Obama talking to black parents about their responsibilities to their children, and Jackson had his feelings on the speech as well.
Up and down the black people on those faith-based.
Bill O'Reilly shared the clip, saying he has lots more audio he could release, sort of using it as a ransom, I guess to get Jackson back on to apologize or something, but we never saw any more of the video, so I guess that plan didn't work out.
The fuck?
O&A agreed with Obama about his remarks about black people, of course, but I also remember them agreeing with what Jackson said about talking down to black people, so whatever faux outrage they're going for here over this leaked audio already feels phony. But let's see where it goes. First, starting with Anthony on his opinions about Jesse himself.
What's Jesse's problem with Obama?
Jesse is a separatist. Jesse is a racist. A racist separatist that is no different than a white guy that wants for just white people. But, you know, that's a lot worse for some reason. Jesse's always been like this.
He's also connected. So Obama...
His Rainbow Coalition is a pile of people that extort other people that run businesses, construction sites, and make them hire black people based on nothing more than their skin color, and make them hire them, or else they protest. It's extortion. It's mob tactics.
And he's not pushed back on it all, Jim, and...
Yeah, they're just like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, oh, okay, you actually had something on this, so you must be right.
Oh my god.
You seem more informed than we are, so you must be right.
I mean, isn't that sort of what, like, conservatives and ignorant white people tend to do, though? Where it's like, well, I don't have anything to say about it, but they do, so they must, I'm gonna go with them.
You gotta have the evidence. If you don't have anything to say about this, you must be wrong.
Yeah.
You have to know everything about it, or I'm not gonna listen to you.
It's not even that. You have to be able to talk longer.
Oh, yeah. You could just be talking in circles, but because a lot of it is like Alex Jones shit.
Yeah.
He can talk fast, so he sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
I consider myself someone who is really good at bullshitting.
Okay.
Early on, like within the first few months of us dating, I was like, I can't cry because I had my tear ducts removed.
Right.
And that was an attempt at a joke for me.
Yeah.
But you believed it for like a few minutes or like a day or something. And
something
I was
like that.
And I was like, no. I was just referencing something and I thought it was funny that you believed it. And just like, I'll find myself doing it where somebody will be like, do y'all think the sun's going to explode in our lifetime and like kill us all off? And I'll immediately just sort of go into bullshit mode where I'm just like, well, actually, blah, 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 and just rattle off things that sound like I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. I'll be like, no, I don't know what I'm talking about. I literally, and I'll have to rein myself in and be like, I'm I do not know what I'm talking about. I'm genuinely bullshitting right now, and it's like a little superpower almost.
Sure.
To be able to bullshit. The things I bullshit about are not important.
Right. Yeah. It can't really hurt anybody.
Yeah. At least from my perspective, they're not important.
Right.
So like, I feel like there are people who can do that.
Yeah.
We didn't have like a very big like debate thing at my school or anything, but if we had, you know me. I love to argue.
Right.
I will think of an argument out of thin air, and you will be like, "What?"
Yeah.
Even like when we're doing the podcast, I'll like have so much to say about this tiny thing that you mention in passing, and I feel like that kind of personality is like an Alex Jones kind of personality, where like you're just really good at like, let me just keep rattling stuff off, filling time,
exactly,
making people think I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I'm
dangerous.
Jim does have his own opinions here that he talks about talking about Jesse.
Why is nothing being brought up the fact that he's basically threatened emasculation, a physical act of violence on a presidential candidate? Like the way the Secret Service...
Hey, there you go.
Why is that not being addressed? Like Eminem in a rap said something about shooting Bush or something. It was something to the nature of hurting President Bush. And the Secret Service did call on him because they have to check everything out.
Yeah, is Jesse getting a little visit from the Secret Service?
Why is that angle not being explored by the media?
I like how this is something that Norton brings up, and Anthony's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Opie presented it being like, what do y'all think about this? And Anthony's opinion is not about anything he said. It's, I hate Jesse Jackson because he wants more black people to have jobs. The boys are spending a lot of time on what I would consider a non-story. The only reason this was huge news is because Jesse in 2008 was still seen as a major player in politics and a one-time largely respected black leader taking on issues with the first black presidential candidate with a strong chance at winning. The kind of stuff Fox News dreams about. The reason the boys are so offended here is because Jackson was a predominant voice calling for Don Imus to get fired, and they always drop whatever they're doing to go after black people they see as being pro-censorship, because it could directly threaten their livelihoods. Anthony reminds us that they were suspended for a month because someone in their show, referred to as Homeless Charlie, made remarks about Condoleezza Rice, and that it's a double standard that Jackson won't face any consequences. I'd put it in there, but I don't think I'd played it for you. This was in 2007. He said something like, I'd fuck the shit out of Condoleezza Rice, or something like that. It's like, I'd fuck the shit out of Laura Bush.
Fuck her right in the pussy.
And it was construed as like rape threats.
If someone said that about me, I'd be like worried too.
They're high profile people, which people take that seriously.
Like me.
And I think O&A also might have pushed it. Yeah. Because this isn't some regular guy saying this. It's a homeless guy. So
and
they're dangerous.
Homeless people are almost always construed as extremely dangerous.
So they ended up getting suspended for a month, and so now they see any kind of double standard of like, nothing's gonna happen to Jesse, why not? And it's like, a white guy saying something is gonna be treated differently than a black guy saying it because of the racism element that I don't think they even really address.
Yeah, well, of course they're not gonna address the race aspect of it, because
no,
they never make anything about race. They just imply that it's about race.
I got a really interesting clip here where Norton agrees with Bill Cosby. It's very strange in hindsight, I guess, because at the time we didn't know what we know now.
Right.
He didn't like the Father's Day speech he gave. He didn't like the fact that he left Jeremiah Wright, and he didn't like the fact that the Father's Day speech, he had the nerve, like Cosby did, to air internal black laundry publicly. The blacks don't like it. Like when Cosby, black people know Cosby's right. They know he's right with what he said, but no, they don't like to hear that.
What do you say, Jimmy? Without
basically about you can't be a doctor talking like that and saying that crap. He was criticizing the way young black men or young black women are talking, the way older white people have been screaming about young white people with heavy metal forever.
Yeah,
but black people didn't like that coming from him because it sounds like a white thing he said. It's the same thing with this. they don't like to hear that aired. But I think most black people probably feel that Obama spoke down to black men when he said that. They don't like it.
All right, here's
about fatherly responsibilities and keeping a family together and
all that.
Plus, he said we can't keep using the excuse of having been victimized or something. And look, maybe I can't speak for black people. Maybe most black people agree with him. I don't know.
Just stop there. Start there. Stop there. You're not a black person.
Yeah.
Quit putting words in black people's mouths.
Yeah. How he just so matter-of-factly says, black people know Cosby's right. Just like, so what? Absurdly, like, do they, Jim?
Yeah.
Like, how many friends do you have? Like,
yeah.
I know this is, again, one of those Opie-isms where I'm only going to take it with a grain of salt. But he made a video saying that Jim Norton doesn't have any actual friends. He just has people he uses that are, like, have some sort of pull. So, like, as soon as... Like, he wants to have people around him that he can use for financial gain and being able to get gigs. And that he only really hangs around with Anthony when it's advantageous for him. But since Anthony isn't a popular person anymore, he doesn't really hover around Anthony as much as he used to.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
And the only reason that he stayed around and did the show with Opie instead of leaving after Anthony got fired was because Opie had a platform on Sirius. It's like, why would I leave XM? Why would I leave satellite for Anthony's subscription-based thing that no one's ever heard of? Even though we would probably get along better and do better shows on there, I'm just going to stick around here and have a miserable time with Opie because I can make more money.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, how many black friends does Jim really have? I know there's a handful of people he talked to back in the day, but I don't know how close of friends they really are, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, like, them talking about the speech that Obama had done, thing that they're not pointing out that is something I've heard black folks say about Obama, not in terms of race, but the intersection of race and class, and how there is both the black exceptionalism and the bootstrap mentality, and I think if there were people there at the time talking about how he's talking down to black people, I feel that nobody's pointing out the class aspect of it.
No.
It's not he's talking down to all black people. Rather, it seems that he was talking down to putting the burden of being a better parent and family man and family person as if there aren't so many societal factors, including race, including class, and all of these things, disproportionately working against black families and black men.
Well, you heard it a little bit at the end there, where Jim says, Cosby says you can't blame everything on society and racism and stuff like that. It's like they don't even want to consider what you're talking about. Those things that affect it. It's like Obama is talking. I never really got the feeling that he was talking to lower families, like lower income families. He's talking to the black families that white people would be more willing to see as being on their level, like their level of means.
So he's almost talking about black families to white people.
And that he's holding lower income families with less means to the same standard as more well-to-do families that, have no problem seemingly sticking together and, they don't have as much.
Yeah, it's like not acknowledging all of the obstacles that happen within race and without race being an issue.
And again, I will say this again, they would not be talking about this if Jesse did not call for Imus to be fired. This is the only reason they're obsessing over this at all. So at this point of the show, I just want to address that if you hear thumping or noises in the background, we had to give our dog something to keep him occupied or he was going to bug us. That. You hear that? That's him. So anyway.
It's cute!
Later in this awful episode, double standards come back again, and for the third time in the span of just over a month, we're yet again talking about the boys cheering on an older woman for taking advantage and sexually assaulting a teenager.
Oh my god, it's like their oldest shtick.
And it comes up again on tomorrow's show as well. We won't spend a lot of time on it, because it's just the same break over and over and over again. Same predictable shit. But in this instance, a 41-year-old prospector and wife of the chief of police sexually assaulted her own daughter's 15-year-old boyfriend. And naturally, O&A blamed the daughter, who Anthony takes time to say isn't bad. 15.
Oh, like looks-wise.
Yeah. That she isn't bad, and blames her for not putting out and for ratting out her mom. Just some real exceptionally horrible stuff.
The 2000s, porn did not really have much of the shit we see today of stepmom and catches her son, and I feel like that is like linked to this concept of the older woman and the much too young man, like boy, and this almost fetish. I don't know if it would be considered a fetish, but it is a category, I guess. And I feel like that's directly linked to this mentality that they just keep going on about.
I didn't bring it up because I didn't think it was worth talking about, but I guess we can kind of tie it in here. That at one point Jim brings to the show, because this isn't anything O&A would know about, but Jim is like the porn guy. He talks about the guy, Max Hardcore, was just recently arrested on like obscenity charges because, and I don't know if you ever came across this stuff back in the day.
Yeah, I think it sounds familiar.
It's this older guy dressed as like a cowboy. He's got a cowboy hat. And the girls that he would fuck in these videos would always have like pigtails.
Barely legal kind of vibes.
They would dress like children.
Yeah.
They would have like lollipops and shit. They would dress like children.
Yeah.
And he was arrested because people were basically calling what he was doing akin to CP.
Yeah.
Well, he died recently, so I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I heard he was an abusive asshole, so I'm going to say it's a good thing. I've only heard passing on that, but I'm still going to say good thing because I never cared for the guy.
Yeah.
He always rubbed me the wrong way.
There are so many male porn stars out there that are just like, if they're doing straight porn, If
you're doing straight porn with women dressed underage and you're being violent with them, like smacking them around and shit, I'm going to imagine you're just a shitty dude.
Yeah, because you're profiting off of it.
Yeah, and how much are they? At the end of the day.
Women still disproportionately profit off of a lot of porn stuff.
Yeah. A man calls up who says he was working backstage at concerts in the late 80s. If you remember, whenever we do this break, it usually results in guys calling up saying how they were sexually assaulted and how great it was.
Yeah.
So this is another one of those. His story is about working in a Neil Diamond show featuring Belinda Carlisle of the Go-Go's. They say it at the end of the clip. I'm just going to say it straight off the bat. We are just playing this clip.
Yeah.
We know nothing about this.
I was working backstage. We weren't allowed to leave until everything was taken care of and we could stick around as late as we needed to. So the concert's over at about 11 o'clock. I'm there at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm about to roll out, and the door for the trailer that she was in opens up. She sees me and says, "Hey, can you come up here?" She's kind of hammered. She says the room just needs to be straightened out. So I go up, I grab some trash, I pull it together, I throw it in a bag. I'm about to walk out, and she grabs me from the front of the shirt, pulls me into her, and lays a big kiss on me, and then just lets me go. And I'm thinking, I've got the greatest story in the world. I get to tell everybody I kissed Belinda Carlisle. So I start to walk out of the trailer. I get 2 steps down the trailer. She grabs me from the back of the shirt and says, "Where are you going?" And I turn around. She gets down and just kind of flops, not really a sit because she was pretty drunk. And I lean in. She starts making out with me. The sex that we had lasted all of about 60 seconds because I was a virgin. And this is Belinda Carlisle.
Wow.
And I had no idea what I was doing. So she just kept grabbing things and putting them places and doing the right stuff. And when I walked out of there, wow. I had memories that lasted me for most of my junior year of high school when I didn't really have to date much. I just spent a lot of time alone.
What year was that?
1987.
Wow, how cool is that? She took his virginity.
This is what Greg is saying. We have no effing idea.
Yeah, it's kind of a rough one.
Yeah.
This episode that I'm listening to, between feeling really sad and bad for Anthony being like, I wish I could have been in the drama club, to the super jarring whiplash to the story about putting a fucking first grader in a trophy case, then immediately going to a whole break about just being racist and talking about Jesse Jackson, to then talking about the 15-year-old. This show has been so fucking hard to listen to. It was a really bad one. On the XM portion of the show, because only halfway through the show, Gene Simmons of KISS is in studio to promote his new book about the history of sex work called Ladies of the Night. Norton is a huge...
Wait. Say the title again?
Ladies of the Night.
He wrote...
Gene Simmons wrote the book about the history of sex work called Ladies of the Night.
Okay.
Jim Norton is a huge KISS fan, but Opie nor Anthony are looking forward to the interview.
Me neither.
Gene Simmons is a notorious, rude, self-absorbed asshole who's the kind of guy who would take that assessment as a compliment. 1 minute into the visit, and Opie is already sick of his shit.
By the way, this content that you're videoing is for whom?
For the website.
Is that okay,
Would you like
Gene?
to ask me first?
Wait, hold on. This is the second time Gene's been in, and the first time he was in, he asked if somebody would ask him, and then how come we're filming, like, at least without the courtesy of asking the second time?
See that? Now you know why he was on my roast and you weren't.
Oh.
But no, for real. Like, it's like that would save us the...
Somebody is supposed to clear.
It's common
not
courtesy.
me, but
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
out there.
Yeah, but it's not somebody. It's like when you before you
I'm
stick
not a
it in.
lawyer.
Yeah, before you stick it in, you say, "May I?"
So that's Sam Roberts, who works for WWE now, who just came in the studio and is filming. So when you hear Gene say, who is this content for? You hear Sam way in the background, for the website, just holding the camera. Jim is talking. He doesn't want to lose access to Gene.
Yeah.
Because he's a star fucker. And he loves Gene. He has a bunch of stuff he wants Gene to sign, whatever. He just wants to seem like, I need to keep up appearances. I need to be people pleaser for Gene. So he's doing most of the talking in that clip, being like, oh, we were able to clear this up before. Why can't we just do that again? And Gene, talking to Sam about Jim, goes, that's why he was on my roast and you weren't. They did a Comedy Central roast. And Opie, you can barely hear it, goes, ugh. As soon as Gene says that, a minute into the appearance, Opie is fed up with Gene. I can agree. I'm never a fan of when Gene is around. Gene is an ass when it comes to music, KISS, and his own self-importance. But his takes on sex work are refreshing for 2008, I will say, saying that it should be legalized. Anthony gives some pushback, whether it's his own personal belief or playing devil's advocate, and Gene goes on to explain that the government intervening with prohibition brought a criminal element into alcohol, and that things would be safer for everyone involved if the government would leave sex workers alone. This is a bit of their back and forth here.
This is a business. It's earned income. Where are the taxes, and what are the rules of this business? Otherwise, it's consenting adults behind closed doors.
But people might argue that would, I don't know, kind of bring the downfall of the family.
That's a good point. But lest we kid ourselves, it exists today.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that the families, I don't think it would change anything, in fact. What I think it would do is it would empower the women who choose that lifestyle to lead a healthier life and not be victims of the pimps and the crack, and the crack and all the rest of that.
That's interesting. You said the empower again. You see women that are prostitutes as being empowered?
To the extent that they have a choice in picking their lifestyle, yes, they should be. Because that should be a choice. If I want to be a sadomasochistic love slave, why should society have anything to say about that? Just because it doesn't agree with somebody else's lifestyle. It's only now that gay men and gay women are even having the ability to express their different lifestyles.
Honestly, not too bad for 2008.
It's not his place, but,
No, not at all.
But there could be other aspects, because maybe he's just putting together a bunch of interviews. I don't know the full context of the book.
Neither do I.
And I hope that actual sex workers actually profited off of it.
I hope to some degree. I'm pretty sure he just did research and presented it as like a history of sex work. Here's where we came from. It honestly just seems like a special interest of his that he decided to write about. I have no idea how many sex workers, if any, were actually involved in the research, but
yeah,
I'm sure that'd be something easy to look up if I actually...
But yeah, it seems pretty legit.
Yeah, not bad.
Especially talking about the empowerment part, where it's like, he's not saying like, yeah, everybody who does sex work is empowered. He's giving the caveat of like, as much as they can be in choosing their line of work, under capitalism, how empowered can you really be?
That's the main reason why I wanted to include it, is because of that, and because of Anthony's bit about empowerment and everything. It sounds exactly... This is why I said I don't know if it's his own personal opinions or if he's playing devil's advocate, because he says, people could argue that it might bring down the downfall of the family, which is very weird.
The family. The puritanical construct of the nuclear family.
It's super weird to hear Anthony say that in 2008, when that's something that he would say unironically first person today. And we've heard him talking about OnlyFans sex workers. He doesn't believe that they're empowered and stuff like that. Like, he believes everyone who does it is, like, forced into it and cries when they're not doing things. And
it really is just, like, this narrative that we've all been fed. Like, sex workers need more help and are more victimized than a DoorDasher. Than someone working a 9-to-5.
No one ever says, we need to save the Uber drivers. We need to save the DoorDashers.
Yeah, DoorDashing and OnlyFans are as exploitative as one another.
Anything that's the gig economy, depends on those type of things. Like, it's not any different.
There is a lot of legislation being pushed against sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
The lobbying that is going into that legislation is a pretty small group of very noisy people.
Right.
You don't really see banks and platforms and stuff pushing this legislation.
Yeah.
Because they profit off of sex work.
Exactly, yeah.
There's a reason why huge corporations and like social media and all these websites and the internet, like providers, don't really do anything until they're forced to by these puritanical groups that are like, oh my god, think of the children. And it's just like, honey, there are rarely fucking children involved in these places that require this, this, and this for you to be able to do it.
Right.
Like, in the sex work communities, they protect themselves and everything. They keep... They shun shitty people. They keep children out.
Right.
And because they have to.
Yeah.
And because there is no other regulation going on.
Yeah.
And, you see plenty of, like, drama and infighting in that. But, like, when it comes to people actually fighting for this, like, elusive save the children thing... It's a very, like, small, noisy group of people, and they're the same people, like, doing anti-trans legislation.
One very interesting thing that comes up in this interview is they're talking about how Kiss has stayed together for so long. They're talking about the friendship between them, because I think for the most part, except for maybe one person who might have died at some point, it's been the same lineup for decades. Gene turns it around and asks an interesting question, gets a more interesting answer.
Uh-oh.
How have you stayed... semi-good friends over these years?
Oh, no, let me think. We're really not friends. We're just coworkers. No, I'm kidding.
No, this is a business now, sure.
This is like, Kiss.
This is a good business. I'm sure you're not hanging out with Paul Stanley when you're not on stage.
Everybody frowns.
We don't hang out when we're not doing this.
They frown until 5:59.
Yeah.
Smile till 11 and frown at 11:01.
That's right. Thank you. Well, it's been a long time.
Yeah,
we have very different lives right now.
That's the same song that Opie's been singing for a while. We live very different lives now, which is his code. Because he doesn't want to get too deep into... The main thing that changed, and we might have mentioned this, was Ant's initial divorce.
Yeah.
That before that, the four of them were really good friends. And Ant and Jen getting divorced put a strain on their friendship because Jen and Opie's girlfriend at the time were good friends.
Yeah.
So then they couldn't see each other anymore. So Yeah.
That's always awkward.
And I do really wonder the dynamic between the two, but you don't really hear anything outside of Anthony just talking about how horrible the divorce itself went for him and how much it cost him for...
Boo-hoo.
But we don't know...
You see his life is in shambles now.
Oh, absolutely. It's
He's
fucking...
got nothing.
So that, I think up until this point, has been the most I've heard them actually talk about it. It starts with Anthony joking, saying, oh, well, we're not really friends. And it could have left at that, because he goes, I'm kidding. Which, again, you very rarely are kidding when you have to go out of your way to say, I'm kidding. But for Opie to back it up and say, oh, us? Yeah, it's a business. And they actually go into it, it's like, wow. That's the type of shit they joke about that probably lit the message board up back in the day like crazy. People were like, oh my god, did you hear what they said?
They're not besties anymore.
They're not besties, what happened? And it's like, if you pay attention for long enough, you would have picked up on this by now. So we're on to the next day, finally. July 11th. The show is
only
a pretty...
3 days till your 21st birthday.
Hey!
Where you get so drunk.
Oh my god, I've been stockpiling. You have no idea.
What were you stockpiling, Moth?
Oh my god.
Name some alcohol.
Budweiser, what is? Miller? Coors. It drank pretty good, don't it?
You got a bunch of shitty beer? A bunch of different shitty beers?
I got all the shitty beers. I was gonna run the gauntlet of shitty beers.
What's your favorite beer?
Oh... Guinness.
You didn't even buy any Guinness.
I couldn't afford
you
it.
Fucking poser.
I gotta work my way up to it. You gotta understand.
When are you gonna drink a Guinness on camera for everybody next?
Oh no, I gave that up a long time ago. I outgrew
You gave it up before you started.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I kicked that.
Oh god, it fucked me up too bad. You know, too many
the thought
nights.
of it.
Oh, I'm getting a headache. I'm getting hungover just thinking about it.
The sips that I've tried.
They add up.
They do. They add up
to about a shot.
Yeah, all the sips you've taken of alcohol add up to like
maybe
a shot maybe a shot.
Maybe. Probably a half a shot.
Because I just imagine the times that I've had you been like you should try this. Just do it, because you know how I am.
It's the smallest.
You barely you let it touch your mouth and then you're like
yeah,
you're like a little lizard.
Yeah, go back to the lizard.
I know you don't take a little sipple.
No swigs here.
What's smaller than a sip?
Oh.
Just a...
Yeah, I don't know if there's a word for it.
Just like a little... I just imagine a lizard, like, licking up a little water droplet. Just...
A little lick, yeah. So, we're on to the 11th, and the show is a pretty good example of how bad the show can be when they just don't feel like being funny. First off, the boys ridicule a woman who is pushing for men working ahead signs to be changed to people working, considering how many workers are women. Then immediately going into a story about a black councilman who called out a colleague for using black hole in what he felt was a racist dog whistle. It all comes down to speech. They cheer on sexual predators and give awful people a slide all the time, including racist white people, but will come down on minorities in a heartbeat if they feel them so much as sticking up for themselves.
Yeah.
It was the whole show.
Jeez, what fucking brought this out in them?
I don't know. It's just... It's a weird thing of... Because you also don't really get a sense that it's something they feel too passionately about.
Oh yeah, of course not.
That it feels like we need to talk about outrage stuff to get the listeners involved. Because you're talking about something that the listeners are going to be like, what? I can't believe that. That's crazy. I gotta listen to that. But it's like at the end of the day, so much of it feels so lazy. When they're actually complaining about it, it's so half-assed.
When you say it like that, when you say that you don't really think that they're that passionate about these things that are like about marginalized communities.
Well, you wouldn't think at the time anyway.
Well, no, I feel like there's something there. There's something to be said about marginalized communities are much more invested in what they consider important versus the people who are bigoted against marginalized communities.
Right.
Bigots hold privilege in two ways. One, they have more power in so many spaces. But also, two, they have a privilege of not having to care that much.
Right.
like I'm sure you know, I'm sure everybody listening knows at least one person who they would consider a bigot. Who also is like, I just don't vote. I just don't care about voting.
Yeah.
Like, what's, who cares? Is it really going to make a difference? I just don't even think about politics. I don't know any politics. It's all politics. I don't see. We don't talk about politics, money, or religion. You just don't talk about those things. And there's like so much inherent privilege in not having to talk about and worry about those things that affect marginalized communities so much more. So yeah, I do think there is sort of like a level of long haul. It's just a game to them. It doesn't actually affect them on a daily basis.
Yeah, good analogy there.
Versus someone who is like, I am the person that you're targeting in this thing you're doing. Mm-hmm. Or bullies. Where it's just like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about all the things I bullied people about. Mm-hmm. I didn't care at the time. Yeah. But obviously the people being bullied are like, oh, I remembered that. Yeah. I'm remembering that for years now.
If it wasn't enough proof of the boys phoning it in today, Ant and Jim do a lengthy discussion complaining that their iPhones don't send photo messages.
What year is this? 2008?
2008. Yeah. Opie was talking about how his BlackBerry does send photo messages.
Oh my God, I never thought about that.
This took a lot of time, actually. It was a whole segment that they were complaining about this, and how hopefully the next update has the photo messages. It's like, wow. Maybe one reason the show is so lackluster today is that the boys are banking on a big finale. Since it's finally... Gonna be very surprised if you remember this. It's finally the day that they have the hypnotist in studio to get to the bottom of Stalker Patty's repressed memories.
Who was the hypnotist?
Don the hypnotist. He is the, whenever Ron and Fez did a hypnotist episode, when it'd be like, oh, have someone come in and have Fez pretend he's Hitler for a while. He's like, he's not, I doubt he's a serious force to be reckoned with in the...
Yeah, I was looking to see if it was the same... Okay, I watched Below Deck recently, and they had a hypnotist on.
Was it the same guy?
No, different guy. I was hoping it would be the same guy, so I could be like, oh, I've seen him do his bullshit.
That'd be hilarious if it was. They pitch being hypnotized to the man who books the guests for the show, Roland, but he isn't having it. He refused to even be in the same room out of fear of catching a contact hypnosis.
Damn.
Yeah, like,
okay.
he thinks even if you're, listening to the radio that you could possibly fall under, the spell.
Well, hypnotism is such pseudoscience that it makes sense that people would be scared of something that nobody fully understands because it's pseudoscience.
The boys are pushing a bit, but are reminded that Roland does have a temper, and they eventually leave him alone.
Yeah, but he's really not.
Just when people piss me off, I'll snap and wish them death.
He really goes from 0 to 100 faster. He goes from 0 to 100 faster than I've ever seen anyone. There's no middle ground with him. Nice, I will kill you.
Major league anger.
Yeah, he doesn't like being bullied and fucked with.
Right.
No.
You hear mainly in that clip Opie saying, I've never seen anyone go from nice to... You can't... He snaps so quickly, don't push him. Opie gets fired for filming Roland in the bathroom. You should have known better.
Wow.
Out of everyone you could have done that with.
What's that TikTok meme where it's like dumb ways to die or whatever?
Oh yeah, dumb ways to get fired.
Yeah.
And so thoughtless. Oh, shit, that's right. Patty is finally here to save the show after first bringing this up probably a month ago at this point and hardly mentioning it or promoting it since. You'd think, if this was going to be this big payoff bit, O&A would be mentioning it. But when they brought it up, oh, Don's here, I think they said it the day before, I was like, oh shit, we're still doing that? I thought we just dropped that bit where we realized it wasn't worth it, but no, here we are. Has been on the Ron and Fez show for years, usually just getting guys on the show to do impressions of each other or be racist for a while. never relive trauma or open up about childhood abuse to all of the USA and Canada. Luckily for everyone, that doesn't happen.
Now, other than the bathroom incident with your stepfather, was there any other incidents that made you feel uncomfortable?
Start jerking, guys.
Stage right.
Yeah, they kept wanting me to go with them shopping, and I wanted to be with my friends. Boo. And they wouldn't allow me to stay home.
Less hot.
Like other kids my age would probably be allowed to do.
You guys gonna go to the game?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with a 12, 13, 14-year-old wanting to stay home. They wanted me with them at all times, but then they would make us sit in the car for 3-4 hours, even from the time I was little, alone and nobody there, and they would just do their shopping. My foster brother was there. He would get agitated. He would start hitting me. I'm in a small area. I can't get out, and I'm trying to fight him off. And he was a little troubled himself. He had a problem.
Yeah, they don't spend any time on the actual abuse that Patty mentions, but instead get kayfabe upset when the story doesn't go the way they wanted it to.
Yeah.
When the child abuse that they were hoping for.
Well, that they were hoping to be able to jerk off to.
Hilarious. Yeah, great stuff. The bit dies a slow death with Patty opening up about her shitty childhood. Admittedly, it does sound pretty fucking bad.
Yeah.
But it isn't as juicy as the boys wanted. Boo!
Maybe
so
they
sad.
Get hypnotized and open up.
This still could have been an interesting segment if O&A were concerned at all, or actually wanted to help in any meaningful way, but the intent was awful from the get-go, so they eventually just start whispering into the mics about how it was probably the worst idea they ever had, and think of ways to save the bit. They try having her yell out, "The Jews run the world," every time Opie is mentioned by name, which takes a while before Patty decides to play along. Once that immediately runs its course, they switch up to yelling, "Give me black dick or give me death," when Roland is mentioned. The bit sucks, and they know it, but there's still a half hour left in the show, which fizzles out with zero fanfare.
Yeah.
And, yeah, at least they were open enough to admit that, wow, yeah, this was bad. This is a bad show we put on. So it starts out phoning it in, just talking about minorities wanting to be represented and sticking up for themselves. And then they talk about iPhones for a while. And they have Patty be hypnotized for a bit. And then the show's just over, and you collect a paycheck. I understand when Opie says that they have a misconception about radio being the easiest job in the world because you have to balance ratings, and you always have to be chasing a rating, so you're always nervous about losing an audience, like you need to keep them entertained. But you listen to this episode, it's like, y'all are flying by the seat of your pants so much. Y'all were really hoping that Patty bit was going to make everything okay.
Yeah.
And knowing them, that they would have been able to play clips of that XM show on the next day's FM show, so they would even have to do even less show prep the next day, but they don't end up playing anything from it. So, yeah.
2008 is pretty late for having a hypnotist on.
Yeah.
Because Hypnosis was going out of fashion and out of, because it was a fad.
Yeah.
Like
90s kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, when I was listening back to the 2005 Run and Fez episodes, when they first came on to XM, they had Dawn in to do an episode. But when they do it, like I had mentioned, it's, Fez is going to be Hitler for a while. He's going to do a bad German accent. Isn't that funny? It's a bit. He's just having everyone do bits. It's basically just an exercise in improv for everybody. Not, hey, come on here.
And they can actually improv.
Yeah. Not Patty, who has zero experience. Oh, go along with this bit, please.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work out. It doesn't pan out nearly the way they thought it would. So we start out the new week with some more bad news. In addition, for the fate of satellite radio being in question, the FM show is being dropped by syndicated stations starting with Syracuse, New York. The show was syndicated through Citadel Broadcasting, a company that was struggling by 2008 and was bought out by 2011. They made a deal bargaining with Citadel recently to stay on in Buffalo, New York, in exchange for Syracuse. We're 20 minutes into the show before this is brought up, and I'd like to highlight Anthony's reaction to it.
Oh, yeah, we negotiated a deal, and some people are finding out that they're on the wrong end of the deal.
Really?
Yeah, let's say hi to Ryan in Syracuse. Ryan!
What's up?
How are you, Ryan?
Not too good. What happened to you guys, man?
What happened?
We're not on in Syracuse anymore.
Why?
And the phones are lit with Syracuse phone calls and Syracuse instant feedback. But Citadel's claiming we weren't doing well in Syracuse. So that's I don't really understand.
What?
But we were able to negotiate, Buffalo for Syracuse. We did a little trade in the radio world. Keep us on at Buffalo, we'll give you Syracuse.
What the hell?
No. You guys should get rid of Buffalo, come back to Syracuse.
I thought we had a nice following in Syracuse. We were getting phone calls from you guys every morning, people loving the show, the instant feedback, the emails, but I don't know.
Oh, that sucks.
I don't know what's going on with this Citadel company.
Well, how about I renegotiate my stocks?
Yeah.
That are down to 89 cents or whatever it is. What is it down to?
89? I wish it was 89. It's like 87.
Did it go down again?
Ultimately, Anthony could give less of a crap about being on in Syracuse. He seems more pissed off about the stock the head of the company convinced them to buy at $19 a share, which is at the time of the episode being down to 83 cents.
Jesus.
Opie goes on to say that he lost $100,000 on the stock investment. Instead of selling the caller on buying an XM subscription, he takes the time to remind everyone that they could stream the show on CBS Radio's iPhone app for free.
Okay.
I don't know if Anthony's reactions were genuine, because if they were, that would imply that he literally had no idea about this bargain. All of his, what? Why? Well, that sucks.
Yeah, it did sound genuine.
He seemed like he was taken by surprise by all of it.
Yeah, excuse me?
Now, I know that the way Opie will present it is that he dealt with all the meetings and Anthony didn't really want anything to do with it. I'm willing to believe it by listening to this clip.
Yeah.
It sounded like Anthony said, I don't give a fuck, you deal with it.
He definitely seems like the type.
So most of the morning is taken up by callers realizing that O&A are not on and wondering why. I guess it was to prove a point about how over they were in Syracuse, but it made for a very boring show, which I'm sure wasn't helping with their ratings.
Mm-hmm.
Before the station can negotiate and bring in another show to fill the time slot, they are running an in-house show called Shut Up and Rock, featuring an underpaid staffer shoved in the studio to spin some records for 4 hours. Jimmy says the only thing worse than hosting a show called Shut Up and Rock is getting replaced by it. They talk about how this is kind of insulting, having a show that specifically indicates we don't want a talk show here.
Yeah.
Stop. This is a pretty fucked up thing. We learn about how Anthony dreams sometimes.
Ooh.
And
akin to hypnosis, dream interpretation.
Yeah, let's see where this goes. Spoiler alert for everybody and content warning. It's bad. It's pretty bad.
What are the content warnings?
Rape.
Oh, okay.
Did I ever tell you what I do when, I think I did mention this, what I do when I know I'm dreaming? The second I'm in a dream and I go, oh my God, I'm dreaming.
Drill a buddy booth?
It's close. No, because sometimes you're dreaming. And then you look around and go, wow, this is so effed up. And then in your dream, you go, oh, my God, I'm dreaming. I run around and molest and rape any woman that's in the dream around me.
You've told us that, but that's impossible. You can't control your dreams in that way, can you?
No, I can. I go, oh, my God,
you got some kind of superpower.
So I start ripping clothes off. I'm just jamming. I'm doing awful, horrible things. But then I usually wake up at that point, because I'm really in a pretty excitable state at that point.
Who can't wait for the one time when Anthony's doing this and all of a sudden he's standing there and the police come. And
I can't wake up.
But I can't wake up. I'm not. What do you mean I'm not dreaming? There's a woman there with no underpants crying and pointing at me.
But wait a minute. No, officer, this is a dream. Don't worry. Ooh.
Yeah.
There are times where I'm dreaming, right? And I realize that it's like, okay, I realize I'm dreaming. And more often than not, the most that I can do in like a lucid dreaming state is just sort of witness everything.
Right.
And maybe change positions and go this way or that way. But once I'm like, I'm going to be in charge of the dream, I wake up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if I am doing the thing where there is a thing that I can do where I am being in charge of the dream, and that turns into daydreaming.
Yeah.
And fantasizing.
Yeah.
All he's doing is admitting to fantasizing about raping women. So,
what else is there to
keep
say?
this ready for in court.
Yeah.
When people are like, "Have you ever had fantasies about raping women?" It's like,
keep that bookmarked.
Keep that bookmarked.
But until next time, we'll leave you with this.
Thinking of taking some poppers and having some gay sex to this. Wow.